News analysis for Trump and the system, a turning point and a test. After nearly 3 years of investigation, after hundreds of interviews and thousands upon thousands of pages of documents, after scores of indictments and court hearings and guilty pleas, after endless hours of cable television and dinner table speculation, the moment of reckoning has arrived. It will be a reckoning for President Trump, to be sure, but also for Robert S. Mueller III, the special counsel, for Congress, for Democrats, for Republicans, for the news media and, yes, for the system as a whole. To the Justice Department, Washington has been for so long and invested in them so much that it may be hard for what he has delivered to live up to they. But once released, Democrats on Friday played down the notion that the report would be the final word, fearing that anything less than a bombshell would undercut their own drive to investigate Mr. Trump, not only on Russia's election interference but on the that have drawn their attention. Mr. Trump, the fact that Mr. Mueller issued no further indictments as he wrapped up on Friday and never charged any Americans alleging criminal conspiracy between the Trump campaign and Russia emboldened the president's Republican allies, who promptly interpreted the results as exonerating him without having seen the report itself. Yet whatever the final conclusions, the Mueller investigation has already cast a cloud over Mr. Trump and his presidency. The special counsel, the investigation has demonstrated as well that Mr. Trump was seeking to do business in Russia even as a presidential candidate longer than he had previously disclosed, and that he surrounded himself with crooks and liars in the form of advisors who repeatedly dissembled to investigators. That includes his whether any of that adds up to impeachable offenses remained an open question. Mr. Trump has what's next? As well as, moreover, the president and his allies have raised enough questions about the conduct of his investigators to convince many of his supporters that the real scandal is the deep state trying to thwart the will of the democratic system by dislodging him from office. The people pursuing, he has complained on Twitter about the witch hunt 183 times, according to the archive, and many more in other settings, including to reporters on Friday morning before leaving the White House for a long weekend in Florida. A found that and yet the swirl of scandal around Mr. Trump extends well beyond Mr. Mueller's inquiry, which was largely limited to issues related to Russia's election interference and any efforts by the president or his aides to obstruct the investigation. Other federal prosecutors in New York have already to violate campaign finance laws by arranging hush payments to keep two women from publicly discussing their claims to have had extramarital affairs with Mr. Trump before the 2016 election, affairs he has denied. Mr. Trump has also been accused of barring a president from taking money from foreign states to obtain bank financing and other offenses. The sheer volume of it makes sense of the people, issues, and ideas. But none of the investigations has carried the authority or import of Mr. Mueller's, in part because of his long-standing reputation in both parties as a straight shooter and in part because of the investigatory tools at his disposal. The assessment by so at last some questions should be answered or at least addressed. Is there more to the story of Russia's involvement in the election than is already publicly known? Did the Trump campaign? Some of the answers may start to become clear as soon as this weekend when Attorney General William P. Barr briefs congressional leaders on its principal conclusions. He will then have to that will not be the end of the story, though, because Congress, at least the Democrat-controlled House, made clear on Friday that it will insist on seeing most everything. That could lead to no report has been as anticipated in Washington since September 1998, when the independent counsel Ken Starr the results of his investigation concluding that President Bill Clinton had committed impeachable offenses, with boxes of evidence transported to Capitol Hill in a pair of white vans trailed by news cameras as if they were O.J. Simpson's Ford. Mr. Starr, in his case, was obligated by the law creating his office to report directly to Congress, which then voted on a bipartisan basis to release his report sight unseen, much to the chagrin of many lawmakers once they saw its explicit description of the sexual encounters between Mr. Clinton and Monica S. Lewinsky that formed the basis for perjury and obstruction of justice charges. Mr. Mueller, by contrast, operated under a different legal basis, reporting to the Attorney General. But the question of taking a lesson in part from the Clinton impeachment effort, which demonstrated that impeachment succeeds in ending a presidency only if it is bipartisan, Speaker Nancy Pelosi has said she does not favor impeaching Mr. Trump because it would be divisive for the country, which she declared is. In saying that any impeachment should be so compelling and overwhelming and bipartisan, she was tacitly recognizing that while the Democratic House might vote for articles of impeachment, it would take at least 20 Republican senators to break with the president to muster the two-thirds vote required to remove him from office, which at the moment appears implausible. The real question, then, becomes whether Mr. Mueller has any evidence that is so damning, so definitive and so powerful that it changes that dynamic. Follow Peter Baker on Twitter.
Raindrop, drop top, smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park, pot.